What kind of self beliefs have you built in yourself from your past that you really don't need to hold on to? Our next speaker is going to share how she guides people through building up their self confidence and losing their self belief.
Building spirituality, family, health, and business. This is The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.
Hey, good afternoon, Giant Builders. I am here today with Vanja, in which case she was a refugee from Yugoslavia, and she turned a situation that gave her a lot of lemons and made it into lemonade. So I am excited to find out about what she offers. Good day. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience as far as being a refugee?
Well, I was 5 when the war started, and I was 11 when we finally moved to Australia. So about the time that it finished. To be honest, in terms of that, it didn't have much of a at that time. I thought it didn't have much of an impact on me because when you are in a certain situation and everyone else is around you in that situation, and at that age, it's just, you think that's just the way everybody lives. It's the way of the world kind of thing. It wasn't until I moved to Australia that you sort of saw a different, like, oh, not everybody lives like this. And that was quite, coming to Australia and having that culture shock and having to adjust to a new language and, my parents having to adjust, coming from a very, scary war zone to having come place where there is peace, but having to accept that and let go, that was an adjustment for all of us. Yeah, it's been interesting because I can't specifically say in terms of over there, having it really didn't hit us until we came here, until you sort of you're out of that survivor mode that you see the impacts of everything that you've lived through. And it's, I think, kind of the same for anyone who has experienced any type of trauma or hardship, which everybody has. You don't really see how it affects you until you come out of it.
Tell us about what you do now.
I am a counselor, so I help women build on their self-belief and find themselves, find their self-esteem and confidence, and yeah, just those things that held us back, and they're usually held back by our upbringing, our past, our pain. So just working through all of that and just to be able to be the best versions of themselves, which sounds corny, but it really is true.
How do we find or how do we bring up all those things in our past that are keeping us back?
They come up on their own.
Oh, okay. Don't have to search for them.
No, no. And the thing is, they come up that, like, that, when you don't have the patience or you're struggling with something or you're struggling with a decision or you are in a place or in a situation where, you don't necessarily want to be there, or you get to a point where, like, what am I doing here? What is my life? That's it coming to the surface, and I think we've all experienced that at some point in our lives. It, and the pain, we feel the pain. We feel the pain through anxiety, through depression, through anything that sometimes it's, the partners that we choose or the, people we surround ourselves with, that all is a manifestations of our thoughts, of our beliefs, of, the life that we've lived. So if you want to find it, it's going to find you.
Where do we find the power to overcome all of our past?
The power is within us because we've already lived through it. So, the hardest part, whatever it is, whether, we had trauma in our life or whether we've had hardship, in adulthood, whatever it is, we've been through it and we were able to survive that. Now, that's a proof of your own power and your own strength just in that. So there is no, of course, outside things can give us, a reminders and boosters, but the power's within us. We just have to tap into it and realize it and lean into it, because sometimes we are afraid, because when we do, I think we're afraid of facing that pain, or we've kind of, I hear a lot, I buried it deep down. It doesn't bother me. It's like, well, the issues that you're experiencing say otherwise. And we kind of, we're hoping that we can forget about it. But as we know, anything within our life, anything that has significance, we can't forget about. So it's about, and the same thing is with our power. We can't, it's not something that we can lose. It can be buried under, other people's expectations and judgments and the pain and everything else. And sometimes we need to tap into it, kind of go, wake up. And that's where that self-belief comes in. But the power is within us. We hold all the strength that we need.
So what does a meeting with you look like?
We have a one-on-one session, and we talk about where you are, where you want to go, whether that's spiritually, whether that's just emotionally wanting, work through some stuff, or whether that's actually physically, these are my goals that I want to set, but I feel like I'm sabotaging myself or something is holding me back. We work through all that, and then I use different modalities and different techniques, and I integrate the Eastern and Western psychology to be able to work through whatever it is that's there, and stop yourself sabotaging, and create an actual life and surround yourself with people who will, that will take you wherever you want to go. And that's an important thing, because people around us, of course, can tear us down and or help build us up. So it's an important thing that we have a good community around us.
Okay, what are some steps we take to find that community?
Starting out and figuring out what type of life you want to live. There is so many communities out there, and not everything is for everyone, thankfully, and that's why we have the diversity. So figuring out what resonates with you, what helps you feel empowered. I have a community that I've created on Facebook, and it's directed at women, and it's helping women work through, just what we talk about. And then whether it's community online or whether it's community within an actual, people figuring out who would be the best person or best people to support you is a good place to start. And then, of course, finding out where that community is. And if you feel like, okay, there isn't one, then chances are that, there's 10 other people looking for that community as well, not being able to find it. So gathering the strength and the power to create it yourself.
So I'm curious, because you say we have the power within us to make the changes. But if we're so overwhelmed with the negativity of our life, are there like steps or things that we can do to pull up that power?
That's a good question. We can start with creating awareness of what's that power buried underneath. Starting to create awareness of what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and really get in touch with ourselves. That's a good place to start, because majority of our life, or we feel like our life is being run for us rather than we are in charge of our life. So being able to create that awareness and kind of go, okay, well, I chose that, or how can I take responsibility for that situation? Or what was it about that situation that made me feel like I needed to react that way? What is it inside that I need to look at? What is it inside that I need to heal? And one of the good ways that you can start to build on that power is proving to yourself each and every time how strong you are. And it's by overcoming those fears. One of the things that I tell my clients, if they are stuck in that place where, they feel powerless, is, okay, well, let's work through a fear that you have. And it can be, a fear of speaking in public, or it can be a fear of bugs, whatever it is. So we will literally go find a bug and go, okay, let's get acquainted with the bug.
It's funny that you mentioned bugs because I have three boys, and when they were born, I was like, I'm not going to let my boys be afraid of things that girls might be afraid of. So I would pick up daddy long legs and lizards and all those things that usually girls are not fond of, but just because I wanted to make sure that my boys didn't use me as like, oh, don't be afraid of that, that type of thing. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
But those are the things that kind of, because it's the same type of fear, whether you're afraid of something physical or whether you're afraid of something inside yourself. Is fear is fear. So being able to overcome that, and then reminding yourself that you're able to, because in fear we usually feel frozen, we feel powerless. That's why we're afraid. Mm-hmm. So reminding yourself of that power by facing it, that's an excellent way that you can build on that, on your own strength and on your own power.
Are there things that we can do to empower our children and our grandchildren, as far as trying to keep that, or pulling out that you can do it type of thing?
I think the way that we build our power for ourselves is, again, it's the same way that we can do it in adulthood, is the way we do it in childhood. We obviously want to protect our children. Of course, we don't want anything to happen to them. But it's when we fall as people, when we fail, that there is something to learn there. We usually don't pay attention until it hurts enough. And so it's the same with children. So allowing them to make mistakes, to fall. Of course, you can always be there to catch them when it gets serious. But if we look at it from psychological and developmental perspective, a child, when they're newborn, and when they're growing into toddlerhood and so on, through each stage to develop different type of skills. Child psychologists encourage parents to allow them to grow on those skills and allow them to play with and maneuver different type of toys and obstacles, so they can learn how to do that. And when a baby wants to learn how to walk, it will fall about 100 times before it takes that first step. And even after that, it will keep falling. I have a 3-year-old and she still falls every now and again. But allowing them to make those mistakes and not make a big deal out of them. It's like, oh, okay, well, that happened. That's where the self-empowerment is, because we're not sitting there and dwelling on what has happened, and we learn the process of it's okay to make a mistake. Now, if we can model that to our children as well, that is a whole other empowerment, and that is a whole other way that they can learn themselves. It's because we tell our children we can do anything and you can be anything, but we don't necessarily believe that for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then we want our children to make mistakes, but we really get down on ourselves when we do or when we fail. So thinking about what we're modeling to our children and allowing them to develop their own sense of self and realize their own strength through growing and through themselves climbing and then falling, and that's okay.
Well, how can people get in contact with you?
The best way to get in contact with me is through my website or my social media. So it's www.vanjaberic, VANJABRIC.com. You can jump on my social media on there, and you'll be able to join the Facebook community that I talked about called Radio Women. So pretty much Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, any one of those, you can contact me. Everything that I teach and share with the world, by all means, connect with me or drop me a DM.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your input and your knowledge and just your will to be out there and help people.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Giants Builders. See you next week.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.